So, you think you'd make a decent medieval archer? Maybe you've seen the movies, cloaks flapping in the wind, bows snapping with elegant precision, arrows flying across the battlefield like whispers from the gods. Maybe you picture yourself, hood drawn low, loosing a perfect shot from a tree branch while a lute plays softly in the background. Yeah, no. Tonight, we're gonna unroll the real life of a medieval archer. And I'll be honest with you, you wouldn't last a day. But that's all right. Most people wouldn't. Now, before we begin, go ahead, dim the lights, fluff your pillow, maybe pour yourself a bit of water, ale, or whatever your modern comforts may be. If you enjoy these long journeys into medieval nonsense and truth, do leave a comment. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I read every single one. It feels like we're all sitting around the fire together, half asleep, half listening, and fully welcome. So, welcome. Take a deep breath. Now let's step into a world of bruised shoulders, wet leather, early morning drills, bad porridge, and enough tension in your spine to turn you into a coat rack by sundown. You've just woken up in the year 1357, and surprise, you're now an archer in Lord Everwin's levy. Congratulations. Except you're not in a castle. You're in a muddy village called Biddlecroft under Marsh. The tent you slept in is made of rough wool, slumped against 3 poles, and held up by sheer willpower and a peg that may or may not have been stolen from a sheep pen. You're sharing this space with 2 other lads, Godric, who snores like a broken bellows, and Willett, who hasn't washed his feet since Candlemas. Smell is Now, your bow lies beside you. It's not the elegant recurve bow of a movie poster. No, it's a longbow, about your height, made of yew, and heavier than your self-esteem after a long winter. You try to stretch. Your back complains. Your fingers are stiff. Why? Because you've been practicing every day for months. And by practicing, I mean pulling back 100 pounds of tension with nothing but willpower, desperation, and a diet of boiled oats and regret. Meet Tamsin, the camp cook. She once fed a whole squadron of archers using only barley, old onions, and sarcasm. She's got one eye, a limp, and a hatred of waste. You ask her for breakfast. She hands you a ladle of what might be porridge, might be roofing paste. You eat it anyway. There's a weevil floating in it. Protein. You step outside. It's raining sideways. Naturally, you've got to report to training. Because Lord Everwin's nephew, a spotty teen called Sir Osbert, thinks it's character building to drill before sunrise. He wears a feathered helmet and smells like rosewater and fear. He shouts, "Bows up," and you groan quietly. Your bowstring is damp. Your shoulders are sore. You haven't, in all honesty, recovered from yesterday's training. No one cares. You draw the bow anyway, because you're a medieval archer and you're too proud to admit you've lost feeling in your fingertips. And this is just the morning. The training field is more mud than field. Puddles stretch out like lakes, and there's a goose who seems to have appointed itself as guardian of the archery targets. It hisses every time someone walks too close. No one questions it. It's won more fights than Osbert. You line up with the others. 12 archers, none of whom look rested, dry, or pleased to be alive. Godric sneezes into his sleeve. Willett is muttering to himself, something about a dream he had, where his bow came to life and tried to throttle him. You believe him. Longbows have personalities. Sir Osbert struts along the line, tapping bows with a stick he calls the rod of discipline. It's really just a broom handle he painted silver. He stops in front of you. "You've got dirt on your tunic," he says, while his own trousers are soaked up to the thigh. You do not reply. You value your teeth. He nods like he's made a point, and moves on. The command is given. Knock, draw, loose. A dozen arrows fly. Most hit the target. One hits the goose. It flies off squawking. Sir Osbert pretends he didn't flinch. You don't laugh, not because it isn't funny. It is, but because your arms are on fire. Holding that bow for 10 seconds felt like lifting a wagon full of bricks using only shame. Let's talk about the bow itself. This thing is a monster. 6 feet of tension and splinters. Drawing it takes more strength than most people realize. This isn't a casual hobby. This is war training. You're not pulling a string. You're dragging a weapon through space using the raw force of your back, shoulders, and fading dreams. And you're doing it over and over and over again. The string has already taken a strip of skin off your forearm. You learn fast. Wear a bracer or suffer. Your fingers, colliest. Your back, ruined. Your spine, a creaking reminder that you were never meant for this. But it's not all agony. There's Thane, the oldest archer in the group. Maybe 50, maybe fossilized. No one really knows. He only speaks in riddles and complaints. He once told Willett, never trust a man whose bow is cleaner than his boots. You're not sure what it means, but it feels true. Thane shoots without even looking sometimes, and his arrows always land true. People say he once hit a French knight in the eye from 2,000 yards away. Thane says that knight owed him money. You believe both stories. Midday arrives. Training ends. For now. You're soaked, sore, and starving. Back at camp, Tamsin ladles out something that might once have been cabbage, if cabbage had a long and tragic journey. You eat in silence, surrounded by men and women who look like they've aged a decade since breakfast. No one speaks of quitting. Quitting isn't an option. You're not a knight. You don't get shining armor and poetry. You're a tool, valuable, dangerous, expendable. And yet, there's pride here. In the string of your bow, in the dull ache in your arms, in the knowledge that if war came tomorrow, you'd be the one holding the line from 100 yards out, sending arrows into the sky like a quiet kind of fury. Afternoon settles in like a damp blanket. The sun never really rises. It just sort of lurks behind clouds, offering a faint gray glow that lets you know it's not night anymore. You've got a brief window to rest before the next drill. Godric has fallen asleep against a barrel. Willett is cleaning his arrows with a rag that used to be a sock. You sit on a stool that wobbles if you shift too much, watching steam rise from your boots. They're soaked through. Again, you wonder if they'll ever be dry. Probably not. Thane passes by and drops a pouch into your lap. Beeswax, he grunts. Waterproof your string. Or don't. See if I care. He walks off before you can thank him. That's as close to affection as he gets. Let's talk about your gear. It's serviceable. You've got a wool tunic with a neckline that scratches like dried hay. Leather vambraces protect your forearms, or at least they did before one of them cracked during last week's thunderstorm. Your quiver holds 24 arrows. None of them match. Some were carved by a local boy who's never seen battle. One still has a bit of chicken feather stuck under the fletching. You don't ask questions. You just hope they fly straight. Your bow is heavier today, not because it's changed, but because you have. The repetition, the weight, the damp, it grinds you down slowly, like a river wearing away stone. Your right shoulder throbs, your fingers ache, your eyes sting from wind. But still, you practice. There's no alternative. If you want to eat, sleep, and stay warm, you do your job. You draw, you loose, you do it again. Training resumes with a new twist. Moving targets. Sir Osbert has fastened a bit of linen to a stick and told Willett to run back and forth like a French invader. Willett's not fast, but he's desperate, which makes the target move unpredictably. You knock an arrow, breathe out, and shoot. The arrow flies wide. You blame the wind. Sir Osbert blames your posture. Thane mutters something about cursed fletching. No one's happy, but no one expects better. This is how learning happens. Slowly, painfully, and preferably not in front of a noble. Later, you help Willett pull arrows from the practice stumps. Most are embedded deep. A few shattered on impact. One is stuck in a goose carcass. That goose again. You think it might have had it coming? You say nothing. Willett hums a strange tune under his breath while he works. You recognize it as the "Please Let Me Survive the Next Skirmish" song. It's a popular one. By evening, your body is one large ache. You ease off your boots and lie on your straw mat, staring up at the canvas tent ceiling, tracing the stains and wondering if they came from rain or something worse. Outside, someone is playing a reed pipe badly. Tamsin is shouting about someone stealing a turnip. The fire crackles. The air smells like wood smoke, leather, and damp wool. You're not comfortable, but somehow you're content. Night has arrived, soft but miserable. The campfire is going strong, thanks to a stack of damp wood that took 2 hours to light and produced more smoke than heat. You're sitting with your knees drawn up, eating something that might be stewed barley, or might be oats that went too far. Willett calls it spear pudding, and no one asks why. Tamsin's nearby, roasting something unidentifiable on a stick. She claims it's rabbit. Thane mutters it's too large for rabbit and too small for dog. Nobody wants to know the answer, so you all agree it's probably fine. Godric's taken off his boots and is airing out his socks, which by smell alone may be classified as biological warfare. You lean back and let your spine crack in 3 places. The ache feels like relief. Someone starts humming an old tune. You don't recognize it, but the rhythm settles into your chest like an old friend. Everything hurts. Everything's damp. And somehow, that feels normal now. Thane starts one of his stories, unprompted, back in the siege of Carillenrig. He says, holding a tin mug like it's holy, "We ran out of arrows, so we used spoons." Someone chuckles. "We did," he insists. "Flattened them with rocks, shot 'em through the slits in their helmets. You ever see a knight felled by cutlery? I have. Beautiful sight." You're not sure whether to believe him, but Thane's been in more battles than you've had hot meals, so you let it be true. Sir Osbert strolls by, trailed by his squire, a skinny lad named Aldred, who looks like he's never held a weapon heavier than a bread knife. Osbert is wearing his feathered helmet again. It droops in the mist like a wilted tulip. He stops, looks at your group, then says, "Discipline wins wars." Then he moves on. Willett waits until he's out of earshot, then mimics the phrase in a high-pitched voice, and is immediately elbowed by Tamsin. The spoon she used may still have stew on it. The fire dims. Someone throws on a fresh log. Sparks jump like startled fleas. Around you, the quiet starts to settle in. Not empty, but full. Full of shared discomfort, shared humor, shared understanding. No one here thinks they're a hero. You're all just trying to get through the next day with your bow intact and your feet not frozen. You lie back, eyes half closed. Somewhere nearby, someone coughs. A dog barks in the distance. The wind shifts and brings the scent of manure across the field. You breathe it in like it's perfume. Your hands are blistered, your bowstrings fraying, and your legs are sore in places you didn't know had muscles. And in the back of your mind, you wonder, would tomorrow be worse? Yes, almost certainly. Morning does not arrive. It ambushes. 1 minute, it's dark and quiet. The next, there's cold air slapping your face and Godric stepping on your ankle because he thought it was a rock. You groan. Everything hurts again. You're not sure it ever stopped. Your back is one long silent scream. Your hands feel like they've been crushed by a mule. Willet's already up, squatting over a bucket, and arguing with himself about whether porridge can be evil. You think the answer is yes. Outside, the camp is wrapped in fog so thick you can't see the fire, even though you can hear Tamsin shouting at someone for burning the oats. The mist clings to your clothes, your hair, your thoughts. You stretch bad idea and pull your tunic over your head, which is still damp from yesterday. You think about what it might feel like to be warm again. Then you stop. That kind of dreaming leads to madness. Today's training involves hill shooting, which is exactly what it sounds like. Climb a muddy slope, then shoot down it while trying not to slide, trip, or land face first in a sheep pat. The sheep, by the way, are watching, judging. You're not sure why, but their disapproval is palpable. Sir Osbert gives a speech about elevation, trajectory, and noble aims. Then he falls down the hill. Thane doesn't laugh, but his mustache twitches. You fire your first arrow. It arcs beautifully. You feel pride. Then it hits the ground, 20 paces short. The target is a straw dummy holding a painted shield, affectionately named Sir Branston by the archers, because he smells faintly of pickled turnip. Godric hits him in the neck. Willet shoots wide, hits a tree, and claims it was a warning shot to the squirrels. You believe him. The squirrels in this region are hostile. By midday, you're soaked through again, your thighs burn from climbing, and your bowstring has frayed just enough to make you nervous. Thane offers you a new one. It's horsehair. You didn't know horsehair could be used for that. Can, if you braid it tight enough, he says, or if you're desperate. You accept it with quiet gratitude. He nods once, as if he's passed along a family secret. Back at camp, Tamsin has made soup. It's gray. It tastes like time and hopelessness. You eat 2 bowls. You'd eat 3 if it meant not standing up again. The fog still hasn't lifted. The world feels small, wrapped in smoke and wool and aching limbs. And still, you keep going, because there's no glory here. Just grit, just bows, just the quiet bond of those who know what it means to draw a weapon over and over, even when your arms say no. Evening again. Or at least, something close to it. The sky has turned that familiar pale gray that says sunset, but in the most uninspired way possible. You've made it through another day. Barely. Your bow is still in one piece. Your fingers, however, are not. You've torn open 2 calluses and bruised a knuckle, trying to unstring your bow, while Willet distracted you with what he claimed was a blessed hedgehog. It was, in fact, a lump of moss. He's not well. Everyone is a little more broken today. Godric limps now. Thane's wrist is wrapped in cloth and something that smells like vinegar. Tamsin is muttering to herself about rations and the thieving ghost that keeps stealing her onions. There's no ghost, just Osbert's squire, Aldred, who's been caught twice now with suspiciously tearful eyes and onion breath. The camp accepts this quietly. We've all done worse. Tonight's fire is stronger. The wood was dry for once. The flames flicker warmly, casting long shadows over bowed heads and hunched backs. You sit close to the edge, letting the heat work its way into your joints. Across from you, Willet is whittling an arrow shaft with his teeth, not efficiently, but passionately. Thane is sharpening his knife on a stone so smooth it could have been polished by time itself. Every now and then someone tosses in a twig or a scrap of bark. No one talks much, but you're together, and somehow that feels like armor. Osbert tries to hold another inspection. You all pretend not to hear him. He circles the fire once, sniffs dramatically, then walks off in a huff. He'll probably write about it in his campaign journal, which you suspect is just a folded scrap of linen where he doodles pictures of himself in battle poses. You've seen one. The horse had 6 legs. Ambitious. Thane finally speaks. You know, he says, voice low, they say a good archer needs 3 things: strong shoulders, strong will, and a complete lack of common sense. A pause. We're halfway there. Willett laughs so hard he chokes on his moss. Later, when it's time to lie down, you do so with the grace of a dropped sack of grain. Your body no longer bothers to complain. It simply sulks. The straw beneath you is damp. Your cloak is stiff with dried mud. You close your eyes and listen to the fire crackle, to someone snoring, to the wind nudging the tent flap. And somehow, beneath all that discomfort, you feel a flicker of something else: belonging. Sleep comes, but not easily. The cold finds the gaps in your blanket like it's looking for them. You curl tighter. Someone coughs nearby. Someone else mutters in their sleep. The fire outside is low now, its crackling reduced to the occasional pop, like a twig breaking under a boot. You dream of arrows that bend mid-flight, of wool tunics that never dry, of Tamsin chasing Aldred with a ladle raised high like a mace. You wake to your own snort. Godric is sitting up, chewing something that may or may not be leather. Couldn't sleep, he says. Teeth itch. You don't ask questions. You just nod. By dawn, the mist is back. It never really leaves. It just steps aside briefly, like it's letting you think you're free before it rolls in again. Breakfast is a piece of hard bread and a mug of something warm that smells like oats and fear. Tamsin calls it morning broth. It's the same thing she served last night. No one's surprised. You eat it because it's hot, and because chewing distracts you from the tightness in your shoulders. Today's challenge: rapid fire. You're told to shoot 6 arrows in a minute. You've done it before, but not well. Your fingers still remember the sting. Osbert stands nearby, with a stick he insists is for timing, but which he mostly uses to tap people who look like they're slacking. Thane mutters something under his breath about tap me once and see what happens. He's not joking. You've seen him throw an arrow like a dagger. You line up, breathe, knock, pull, loose. It's less graceful than it sounds. Arrows fly. Some hit, some don't. One shatters against a tree. Willett's last one goes straight into the mud. It was warning the ground, he says, in case it gets any ideas. You believe him. The ground's been smug lately. Between drills, you sit with Thane sharpening old arrowheads. When I was your age, he begins, you prepare for a story. I didn't have a bow, had a bent stick, and angry thoughts. He smiles. You don't know if he's joking. Then again, you've never seen him miss a shot. By the end of the day, your arms are jelly, your hands shake, you try to pick up your mug and spill half of it on your lap. It's cold now anyway. The kind of tired you feel isn't the good kind. It's deep, sour, bone deep. You ache where you didn't know you had parts. But no one complains. You just sit together, like logs drying near the fire, quiet, used up, still here. And when the night folds in again, you lie down not because you want to sleep, but because there's nothing else left to do. You stare at the ceiling of the tent. You count the slow breaths of your comrades. You listen for the wind. And somewhere, beneath the ache, is that same feeling, the one you don't name. The one that says, I'm not alone in this. The next day doesn't begin. It simply picks up where yesterday left off. You're not sure if you ever truly slept. The cold seeped into your bones sometime after midnight, and the damp never left your clothes. Your dreams were full of half-remembered orders, misfired arrows, and the sound of Sir Osbert's voice echoing through your skull like an unwanted sermon. You wake up before dawn and just lie there, staring at the ceiling of the tent, wondering if you'll ever feel your fingers again. Thane's already outside. He always is, sitting on a stump with one leg crossed over the other, sharpening a dagger that looks older than most of the recruits. He nods at you. If you can still feel pain, you're not dead yet, he says, which, coming from Thane, is basically encouragement. Godric stumbles out behind you, squinting into the fog like it owes him money. Willett emerges last, covered in straw, looking like a hedge come to life. Dreamt I was a carrot, he mumbles. No one asks for more detail. Today, there's no training. Instead, there's talk, rumor, really. A skirmish on the edge of the marshlands. Raiders, maybe. Bandits, maybe worse. No one knows for sure. But suddenly everyone's checking their strings, counting arrows, muttering quiet prayers they claim not to believe in. You feel the shift in the air. It's different when it's not practice. The silence is heavier. You start to notice how few spare bowstrings are left, how many arrows are crooked, how tired everyone looks when they think no one's watching. You sit beside Willett, both of you fiddling with your gear. He pulls out a charm tied to a bit of bone. For luck, he says. Found it in a fish. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. Seemed promising. You don't laugh, but you smile. It's something. Tamsin gives you extra food. Not a lot, but more than usual. You don't ask why. She doesn't look at anyone directly today. Just stirs the pot and mutters about needing more barley and fewer bloody mouths to feed. When she hands you your bowl, you say thank you. She doesn't reply, but she ladles in another scoop. Thane walks the perimeter, slow and steady. He's done this before. Many times. You watch him pause now and then, look out across the trees, the hills. He squints, listens, moves on. First shot matters, he says, not looking at anyone. Always does. Then he keeps walking, and you realize, with a dull kind of clarity, that this isn't just another drill. Something is coming, something real, and your bow, the one that bruises your chest and bloodies your fingers, might be the only thing between you and silence. The day wears on like a damp cloak, clinging, heavy, hard to shake off. No one says much. The laughter's gone, tucked away somewhere behind the tension that settles into every shoulder. Thane sharpens every blade in camp. Tamsin refills water skins without being asked. Even Sir Osbert seems quieter, walking with his hands behind his back, like he's trying to remember something important and keeps forgetting it again. Aldred, his squire, keeps tripping over things. Nerves, probably, or his own feet. You sit on a log near the edge of the clearing, watching your bow, not holding it, just watching. It leans against your pack, tall and silent. Its curve familiar now. You've cursed it, blamed it, nearly snapped it across your knee twice. But right now, it looks different, like a companion, like something that might matter. Willett is beside you, fiddling with his arrows. I think I'll name them, he says suddenly. Each one, so they know they're not alone. You glance at him. He's dead serious. This one's Geoffrey, he adds, tapping the shaft of a broadhead. Looks like a Geoffrey. You nod slowly. And what about that one? He holds up a crooked arrow with half its feathers missing. He frowns. That's probably Marjorie. Godric, across the fire, is tying a fresh grip onto his bow. His fingers move with precision, his face tight. He hasn't joked all morning. He hasn't even muttered. That's how you know it's real now. Everyone has their own way of preparing. Godric goes silent. Willett gets weirder. Thane grows sharper, literally and figuratively. Tamsin sings old songs to herself under her breath. Tunes so old they creak. By afternoon, a scout returns. Dirt-covered, panting, eyes wide. He says they're close, whoever they are. Bandits, Raiders? No one's sure. Maybe mercenaries looking for a fight, maybe deserters who forgot how to be human. But the message is clear. Tonight, or tomorrow, or maybe just after dawn, it's happening. Sir Osbert calls a meeting. Everyone gathers, bows in hand, blades nearby. He tries to speak like a noble. He tries to give a speech. It's not very good. He says something about honor and courage and serving with pride. Then he clears his throat and dismisses you all, as if he hasn't just confirmed the thing you've all been quietly dreading. Thane lingers behind. You see him place a hand on Osbert's shoulder. Just briefly, like he's saying, I've seen worse. Don't mess this up. You spend the rest of the day checking gear, tightening bowstrings, running fingers along fletchings, whispering to arrows like they're old friends. You eat what might be your last full meal in silence. You roll your cloak tighter, lay your boots beside your mat, and when night comes, it comes fast. You don't sleep, exactly. You just close your eyes and wait. The night is thick, not just dark, but dense, like the world itself is holding its breath. The fires burned low, just coals now, glowing faintly beneath a crust of ash. You're lying on your back, staring at the inside of the tent, though your eyes aren't really seeing anything. Outside, there's movement, but not footsteps, not horses, just the shuffle of people who are too tired to sleep and too tense to sit still. You hear Willett whispering to his arrows again. Geoffrey, you behave tomorrow. Marjorie, please fly straight this time. Godric is sharpening the tip of a spear with a rock. He doesn't use a knife, says it ruins the soul of the weapon. You're too tired to ask what that means. Thane is sitting cross-legged in the dirt, eyes closed, palms resting on his knees. Meditating, maybe, or just napping with dignity. Tamsin moves like a ghost between tents, placing mugs of warm broth beside sleeping forms, silent as a shadow. You think about thanking her. You don't. Not because you're rude, but because words feel heavy tonight. Aldred, poor thing, sits by the fire, looking like a wet napkin. His hands tremble every time he checks his dagger. Sir Osbert paces behind him, arms folded, muttering things that sound important, but don't mean much. Formation discipline, shield coordination, forward posture. You think he's rehearsing a speech or an apology? The mist thickens, curling in through the edges of the camp like it's watching. The trees whisper. The wind nudges, and the silence gets louder. You pull your cloak tighter. Your bow lies beside you, waxed and strung. 20 arrows. You count them again. You know the number hasn't changed, but it feels like the only thing you can control. Thane breaks the silence at last. First arrow's the hardest, he says quietly. No one responds, but everyone hears him. After that, it's just breathing. Then he picks up his bow and walks to the edge of camp, just to stand, just to look, just to be still. You follow a few minutes later, not because you have anything to do, just because being near someone like Thane feels like standing beside a stone wall, solid, silent, and strangely comforting. You don't speak. You don't need to. The wind picks up slightly. The trees bend. Somewhere out there, someone else is awake. Maybe watching you, maybe waiting. But for now, there's nothing to do but keep breathing and hold fast to whatever part of yourself still feels steady. Dawn doesn't rise so much as it seeps. A thin, sickly blue light bleeds across the horizon, filtering through the mist like cold breath. It doesn't warm anything. It just reveals shapes, trees, tents, figures moving slowly in silence. No one speaks. You've already eaten, if you can call it that, a mouthful of bread, a sip of water. Your body feels light, but not in a good way. More like a ladder, missing half its rungs. Your bow is slung across your shoulder, The arrows are checked again and again. Godric is tying his hair back with a strip of linen. Willett has a feather tucked behind his ear. He says it's for speed. Tamsin hands out strips of salted meat without making eye contact. She's dressed in her cleanest tunic. That alone tells you she thinks today matters. Sir Osbert gathers you near the tray line. His voice cracks on the first word. He clears his throat. They're close, he says, glancing at a scout who nods gravely. We hold the ridge. We hold our line. Archers behind the first slope. You loose on my signal. Not before. He looks at Thane for confirmation. Thane doesn't nod. He just steps forward, bow already in hand. Expression unreadable. You march in silence, the mud sucking at your boots like it wants to keep you. The ridge isn't much, a low rise with a view of a clearing below. Thane picks a spot behind a tree, crouching with the ease of someone who's done this too many times. You take position beside him. Godric to your left, Willett to your right. Everyone has a job. Everyone knows what to do. Now comes the waiting. You crouch low, heart thudding slow and loud. You breathe in damp earth, wet bark, the faint scent of moss and sweat and iron. You hear bird song too cheerful. You hear wind in branches. You hear Thane whisper, no shame and fear, just means you understand what's about to happen. Then the scout returns. 2 fingers raised, movement in the trees. They're here. Sir Osbert raises a hand. You grip the bow tighter. Not yet. Figures emerge. Shadows at first, then clearer. Leather, steel, movement. Bandits, or worse. One carries a torch, another a curved axe. You count 10, 12, maybe more. They don't know you're here. Not yet. Osbert holds his breath. Then his hand drops, and the world changes. The hand drops. And in that instant, you don't think, you just move. The bow rises, the string pulls back, and the arrow looses. It all happens faster than it should. Faster than your body should allow. The first arrow sails. It doesn't matter if it hits. What matters is that it flew. Around you, others release. Willett beside you curses as his string slaps his arm. Godric mutters something you hope wasn't a prayer. You reach for your next arrow before the first one lands. Down below, the bandits react like kicked ants. One drops instantly. Another ducks. The rest scatter. But it's too late. A second volley is already in the air. You feel your arm tense. Your back strain. The third arrow you loose thuds into a shield. The fourth grazes a tree. You keep going. No time to think. Just knock, draw, loose. Your hands move like they've always known this rhythm. You've practiced it in rain, in pain, in half sleep. Now it's real. A scream echoes through the trees. You don't know whose it is. Thane shouts something. Maybe a name, maybe an order. Osbert's voice is high, sharp, commanding from behind. The squire, Aldred, is trying to reload a crossbow with shaking hands. You loose another arrow, then another, then nothing. Your quiver's empty. You don't panic. You drop low. Your heart is racing now, not in fear, but in sheer animal focus. The kind that only shows up when you've got no other choice. Around you, other archers shift. Godric tosses you a half-full quiver without a word. You nod. Grab one. Draw. Loose. Your breath comes in sharp bursts now. Sweat stings your eyes. Mud cakes your boots. You can't feel your fingers. Then, silence. A strange, awful quiet settles over the ridge. A bird chirps once, then stops. The air feels hollow. You peek over the edge of the slope. The clearing below is a mess of trampled grass, bodies, broken shafts. A few figures retreat into the woods, limping, dragging, gone. The fight, if you can call it that, is over. You stand slowly, your legs trembling. Willett sits down in the mud like his bones gave up. Jeffrey did good, he whispers, staring at his last arrow. Godric hasn't moved. He just stares ahead, jaw clenched. Thane lowers his bow and mutters, "Not clean, but done." You nod, though you're not sure what part you're agreeing with. Osbert walks past, pale but upright, his helmet askew. "Good work," he says. His voice wobbles. You all pretend not to notice. And just like that, the silence becomes heavier than the noise that came before. You don't speak for a while. No one does. The clearing is quiet now, except for the creak of branches, the soft rustle of the wind trying to carry away what just happened. Your hands are still curled like you're holding the bowstring. Your arms ache with the kind of pain that doesn't stop once the fighting does. You look down at your fingers. The skin is torn. There's a small splinter driven into the side of your thumb. You didn't feel it happen. You feel it now. Willett finally exhales, long and slow, like he's been holding it in since yesterday. "Didn't die," he mutters. "Didn't die, didn't miss, didn't cry. That's 3 for 3. You don't point out that he did. In fact, scream at one point. That's beside the point. Godric still hasn't said a word. He's got blood on his sleeve. You don't ask if it's his. You both decide not to know. Thane stands slowly, bow in hand, face like stone. He surveys the field, then turns away. "Burn the bodies," he says quietly. "If they're left out, others will find them. Animals, or worse." Sir Osbert gives the order a moment later, louder, as if it were his idea. Tamsin shows up with water and a sack of something to chew. She doesn't speak, but she hands you a strip of dried apple. It tastes like sweetness and rot, and everything you didn't know you missed. Aldred is crying behind a tree. He's trying not to. You give him space. Let the lad cry. He still believes this was about glory. He'll learn. The fire is built by midday. The smoke rises thick and bitter. You help carry 2 bodies. They're not heavy. That's the worst part. They feel too light, too human. The face of one is young, barely older than Aldred. There's a half-eaten biscuit in his pouch. Someone takes it out and tosses it into the fire with him. Some things shouldn't be left behind. Later, back at camp, everyone eats in silence. The stew tastes like ash. You don't finish yours. Willett falls asleep, sitting upright. Jeffrey still clutched in his fist. Godric finally speaks. "First one," he says. You nod. "Yours too." Thane sits by the fire, not looking at anyone. "Next time, don't aim high," he says, to no one in particular. "You're not shooting at trees. You're shooting at people." You lie down that night, sore in body and mind. The tent is too quiet. Your thoughts are loud. You stare at the canvas and wonder how many more times this will happen. How many arrows you'll fire before one finds its way back to you. The next morning arrives like it doesn't know what happened. The mist is back, thicker than ever, curling through the trees and hugging the tents like an old friend, trying not to ask too many questions. You wake slowly, everything aching in the same dull rhythm. Not sharp pain, just the kind that lets you know you were used like a tool and then left out in the rain. You sit up groaning, checking for bruises, scratches, new regrets. They're all there, present and accounted for. Godric is already outside, staring at nothing. He hasn't said much since yesterday. He will, eventually, but not yet. Willett is carving tiny faces into his arrows now. Helps them focus, he says, as if that explains anything. One of them has a mustache. You decide not to ask. Thane's not in camp. He disappeared before sunrise, probably walking, or hunting, or remembering something he never wanted to remember. You find your bow where you left it, wrapped in cloth, carefully leaned against your pack. It looks peaceful, almost like it didn't just help end a life. You run your fingers along it. The string is worn. You'll need a new one soon. The wax is holding, but barely. You tighten the wrap at the top. A splinter is starting to rise from the grip. You smooth it down with your thumb. The bow doesn't complain. It just waits. Tamsin serves breakfast. Boiled grains and a fried egg. Somehow. You don't ask where she got it. You just eat it. It tastes like a new start, or at least a pause. She says nothing while you eat, but she gives you an extra ladle. That's how she says, "I saw you come back." Sir Osbert calls for inspection. His voice is stronger today, less tremble, more bark. He's trying to re-establish order. You can't blame him. He saw it too. The chaos, the blood, the way the world got real too fast. Now he needs things to look like they're back under control. You stand in line with the others, shoulders straight, boots muddy, eyes ahead. He paces past, nods once. "Good," he says. "We're ready if they come again." Thane returns just before midday. He says nothing, just sets a small bundle of herbs beside the fire and sits down slowly. He smells like smoke and pine. No one asks where he went. He pulls out a stone and starts sharpening his knife again. And like that, the camp starts to breathe again. Not deep, not freely, but enough. It's strange how quickly normal comes back. Not comfort, not peace, just routine. You wake, you eat, you check your bow, you listen for orders. The fear doesn't vanish. It just moves into the background like a dull ache you've learned to walk with. The sky stays the same color as dishwater. The mist doesn't leave, and the firewood smokes more than it burns. Still, there's a rhythm again, familiar, if a little warped. Willett has gone full philosopher. "Do arrows dream?" he asks over breakfast. "And if they do, is it of flight or of finally missing?" Godric throws a stale crust at him. It hits his forehead. He looks genuinely proud. "That one was named Ethel," he says, rubbing the spot. "She'll remember this." Sir Osbert holds another drill. You go through the motions, knock, draw, loose, but your heart isn't in it. Your arms obey, but your mind is elsewhere. You keep seeing the boy with the biscuit. You keep hearing the way the forest swallowed the sounds after the last arrow flew. Even the targets look different now. Less like straw, more like memory. Thane corrects your posture once. Just a hand on your shoulder, a nudge at your elbow. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. The adjustment works. Your next arrow lands true. He nods once and moves on. Tamsin cooks turnips for supper. Again, you eat without complaint. There's something comforting about bad food made by someone who still shows up. She hums a song you don't recognize, low, slow, the kind of tune that might have been passed down through 3 lifetimes. You wonder if she even knows she's doing it. That night, the campfire feels warmer. Not because the flames are better, but because no one's trying as hard to pretend nothing happened. The silences are less tense. The jokes return, if only in fragments. Godric retells the story of Osbert falling down the hill, and this time, even Osbert chuckles, grudgingly, but honestly. You sit close to the fire, bow across your knees, staring at the way the light dances on the wood. You run your thumb over the grip again. There's a new nick in it. You don't remember when it happened. You decide to leave it. A mark is just a sign. Something was used. Like a scar. Like a story you're still learning how to tell. The next morning arrives. With bird song. Real bird song. Not just the half-hearted crow of an angry rooster, or the screech of a goose with emotional problems, but actual song. Sweet and clear. It throws everyone off. You sit up wondering if you dreamt it. Willett claims it's a sign of the world. forgiving you. Godric says it's probably just mating season. Either way, the mood is lighter. The mist is still here, but it feels thinner, more like a blanket than a shroud. You stretch. It hurts. Every part of you cracks like old firewood. Your fingers are stiff. Your shoulders feel like they belong to someone else, and your back makes a sound that shouldn't exist in nature. You're 20-something, but your joints scream like you're 70. This is the archer's gift. Strength, yes, but also slow, creeping ruin. Breakfast is bread and broth. Again, Tamsin, in her usual fashion, dumps a handful of dried herbs in and calls it a spring tonic. It tastes like she boiled a hedge. Still, it's warm, and it helps. Sir Osbert gathers you for form review. He's had a taste of command now and is trying very hard to act like a battle-hardened leader. His hair is slicked back with something that smells like goose fat and lavender. He's clearly overcompensating, but you humor him. He's trying. He demonstrates a draw, overextends, wobbles, and nearly hits himself in the nose with the bowstring. No one laughs out loud. Thane simply says, "Try again." Less poetry, more aim. The rest of the day is slow. Practice, maintenance. You rub wax into your bowstring, mend your cloak, stitch the torn bit on your bracer. Willett is now carving names onto each of his arrows, like a parent labeling school supplies. "If I die," he explains, "they'll know who was with me." You nod. It's ridiculous and weirdly touching. Thane sharpens his knife again. You've never seen it dull. You suspect he just likes the sound. He tells you out of nowhere. The thing no one tells you is that survival's just a string of half decisions that didn't go wrong. You ask him what that means. He shrugs, still figuring it out. By sunset, the fire is already going. You sit around it, warm for once, not because of heat, but because of presence. Everyone's here, tired, alive, a little quieter than before. But here, Willett passes around a flask of something that burns like dragon breath. Medicinal, he claims. You drink it. You regret it. You drink it again. And for a little while, no one talks about arrows, or war, or what it feels like to see someone fall. You just share warmth, and laughter, and a silence that finally feels safe. The days blur together now. You wake, you train, you eat, you sleep, or try to. There's still an ache in your fingers that no salve seems to touch. Your bow shoulder throbs every time you lift your arm above your head. You think about complaining, but there's no audience for it. Everyone else hurts too. Pain's just part of the rhythm now, like meals and mist and Tamsin's soup that always tastes vaguely of root cellar and disappointment. Willett has begun giving daily performance reviews to his arrows. Ethel flew straight, he mutters over lunch. Might give her a fresh fletching. Oswin curved left. Again, I think he's rebelling. Godric suggests naming one, "Don't miss," just to see if it takes the hint. You almost smile, but your lips are too dry from the wind. Sir Osbert holds another drill. He's gotten better, less shouting, more watching. He still can't string his own bow without help, but he walks the line with a steadier step. He pauses beside you, watches you draw and release, then says, "You don't flinch anymore." You blink. You hadn't realized you ever did. He walks on before you can reply. You find Thane later, standing at the edge of the clearing, looking at the sky. You ask him what he's watching. He doesn't answer right away. Then he says, "I used to aim by the clouds. Pick one. Trust the wind. Let the rest happen." You try it. You loose an arrow toward a cloud that looks like a crooked goat. It lands wide. Thane doesn't laugh. "Wrong goat," he said. That night, Tamsin surprises everyone with honeyed bread. Just a little, just enough to taste. The camp pauses as one like a spell's been cast. You chew slowly, carefully, reverently. It's the best thing you've eaten in weeks. Willet cries a little. No one says anything. The fire is warm. The moon is low. The woods are quiet. You sit with your bow across your knees, running your fingers along the wood like you're learning it all over again. You think about the first time you held it, how heavy it felt, how much you hated it, and how now. It's the one thing in this camp you trust with your life. You lie back and look up. The stars are clear tonight. A rare gift. You pick one, name it after your best arrow. You don't say it aloud, but you feel it, something close to peace. The days are longer now, not warmer, just stretched. The sun lingers like it's unsure where else to go, casting long shadows over the ridge and turning the mud to clay. By midday, you start to sweat more. Your tunic sticks to your back like regret. The ache in your bow arm never leaves anymore. It simply changes shape. You roll your shoulder in slow, quiet circles when no one's looking. You tell yourself it's fine. It isn't, but it's familiar. Willet has taken to whispering to the trees. He swears one of them is listening. That elm knows things. He mutters. Deep things. Old roots. Godric humors him by nodding sagely and offering bark as tribute. You half expect the tree to respond at this point. Camp logic is flexible. Your bow has become a second limb. You sleep with it nearby, just within reach. Not out of fear, out of habit. It's something to press your hand against when you wake from strange dreams, the kind filled with arrows flying too slow and enemies moving too fast. You don't remember them clearly, just the feeling of being unready, of being watched. Sir Osbert drills you all again, this time in formation. He walks you through fire and fallback patterns, like he's teaching choreography. You're surprised to find it works. When the volley is timed right, it sounds like thunder, arrows falling in waves. There's something beautiful in it. Brief, precise, powerful. Osbert sees it too. He doesn't smile, but he looks less like a boy playing dress-up and more like someone who's learning to lead by doing. Thane begins teaching Willet how to make arrowheads from scrap iron. It goes poorly. There are burns. There is cursing. But by the end of the day, one of Willet's creations vaguely resembles a point. She'll be called Mildred, he says. She looks dependable. That night, you sit by the fire, cleaning your bow. You rub beeswax into the string. Smooth your fingers over the grip. Test the tension with your thumb. You speak to it softly, barely above a breath. Not words, just sounds. Like the way you'd hum to a restless animal. And for the first time you realize you've stopped hating it. This weapon that once felt like punishment now feels like memory of practice, of sweat, of shared silence, of breath held, then released. You lie down with the faint scent of wood smoke in your hair and the bow across your chest. You're not relaxed, but you're ready. Morning finds you already awake, not from noise or fear, just habit. Your eyes open before the light fully arrives. You lie there a while, staring at the roof of the tent, tracing the same stain that looks vaguely like a chicken riding a horse. It's become your morning ritual. You think of it as a blessing, or a warning, or both. You sit up slow. Your back creaks. Your knees offer a protest. The usual. Willet is outside, brewing something he insists is tea. It smells like pine needles and punishment. It's restorative, he claims. The trees gave it freely. You take a sip. It tastes like wet bark and regret. The trees want me dead, you whisper. He nods solemnly. That means it's working. Godric sharpens his blade with more focus than usual. He's quiet again, but not distant. Just thoughtful. He's been carving notches into his bow for every clean shot he's made. You ask how many, he shrugs. Just the ones that felt right. You don't ask what right means. You suspect it changes. Sir Osbert has developed a limp, not from battle, but from slipping in the latrine trench. The camp won't let him forget it. Thane tells the story nightly, each time with more dramatic flair. And then splat. His noble backside met the vengeance of gravity. Aldred laughs so hard he falls over. Osbert doesn't even try to stop it now. That, more than anything, shows growth. The day's training is lighter. Half draws, stance correction, breathing drills. Thane runs it himself, while Osbert watches, arms crossed, trying to look in charge. You listen more now. Thane's advice lands differently than before. It's not just about form anymore. It's about feeling, about knowing the bow, not just using it. Afterward, you and Willett walk to the tree line to gather more kindling. He talks about dreams again, this time one where he turned into an arrow mid-flight. It was peaceful, he says, right up until I hit something. You glance sideways at him. A target, a cabbage cart, he says. Exploded everywhere. You nod. Symbolic. He nods back. Exactly. That night, you find yourself humming one of Tamsin's old songs while cleaning your gear. You don't remember the words, just the tune. It loops quietly in your head, steady as the pull of a bowstring. Across the fire, Godric whittles, Willett, sketches arrow names into the dirt. Thane sharpens. Osbert tries to write in his journal, while Aldred braids his hair. You watch the fire. You feel your hands. You breathe. And for the first time, you wonder what life might feel like when the war finally ends. You don't remember when it stopped feeling strange to call yourself an archer. At first, the bow was just a thing you held, awkward, heavy, unkind. Then it became something you trained with, something you feared. And now, without really meaning to, it's become something else. Not an extension of you exactly, but maybe a mirror, something that reflects the shape of who you're becoming. Today is slow, a rest day, if such a thing exists. No drills, no orders, just the quiet work that keeps a camp from unraveling. Mending gear, cleaning blades, re-waxing strings. Gadrick spends the morning patching a hole in his boot using thread made from horsehair and pure stubbornness. Willett is reorganizing his arrows alphabetically, claiming that efficiency saves lives. You point out that most of them are named things like Greg and Lefty. He nods. Exactly. Thane is quiet today. He's sitting by the fire, carving something from a bit of oak, not a weapon. Something smaller. You can't quite tell what it is yet. He works with slow, careful movements, as if the wood remembers more than he does. You sit near him, not to ask questions, just to be close to the quiet. Some silences are worth sharing. Sir Osbert holds a short inspection, more out of habit than need. He's still limping slightly. He hides it better now. There's less distance between him and the rest of you lately. He asks how your bowstring is holding. You say fine. He offers you a replacement, just in case. You accept. He nods. No speeches. Just the shared knowledge that one small failure can change everything. The evening comes gentle. Tamsin makes something sweet. Honey and oats, baked into something that doesn't quite hold its shape, but still tastes like comfort. She says nothing, just passes out the portions with her usual scowl. But her hands linger a little longer than usual when she places yours in your palm. You sit by the fire the same way you always do, but tonight you feel heavier, not in body, in thought. You stare at the embers and wonder, when did surviving start to feel like something more than luck? And then Thane holds out what he was carving. It's a small figure, rough, simple, a person with a bow. No detail, just shape. just truth. Thought you might want it, he says. You take it, it fits in your hand like it's been waiting for you, and you understand that this ache, this effort, this quiet firelight isn't just survival anymore. It's identity. The figure Thane gave you stays in your pocket. You don't think about it much, but you find your fingers drifting to it now and then, when you're waiting for orders or watching smoke rise from damp wood, or lying awake trying to stretch your spine into a shape that doesn't feel like a punishment. It's smooth in some places, sharp in others. Just like you, really. A little worn. Still standing. The weather turns colder again. A mean wind cuts through camp just after dawn, sharp enough to wake even Willett without warning. He emerges from the tent swaddled in 2 cloaks and a horse blanket, looking like an angry bishop. If I freeze to death, put my best arrow in my hand, he declares, teeth chattering. Send me off with some dignity. Godric throws him a lump of bread. It bounces off his head. No one speaks of it again. Today's training is with moving targets, ropes strung between trees, with sacks swinging from them. You've done it before, but Thane's added a twist. Shoot from cover. Real trees, real brush, not just to hit, but to hide. He calls it learning how to be invisible, with teeth. It's harder than it sounds. Your cloak snags on branches. Your quiver makes too much noise. You miss the first 2 shots. You don't miss the third. Sir Osbert watches from a distance, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He doesn't interrupt. He's learning too. You see it in the way he nods after each volley, not with pride, but with understanding, like someone finally realizing what they've asked of you. By midday, your hands are numb and your stomach's louder than Willett. Tamsin brings out a pot of something thick and yellow. You don't ask, you just eat. It tastes like lentils, maybe, or regret. Willett adds salt from a pouch he insists was blessed by a traveling monk. You're pretty sure it's just dirt, but it helps. In the afternoon, Godric shares an old story, not of war, but of his mother, how she taught him to tie knots, while she made fishing nets. He still ties his bowstrings the same way. If it held a carp, it'll hold a shot, he says. You nod. That makes as much sense as anything else out here. That night, you sit by the fire, longer than usual. No one's talking, just sitting, breathing, listening. Someone's humming again. Might be Tamsin, might be the wind. You hold the carved figure in your hand and turn it once in your palm, and without thinking, you whisper a name to it. Not your own, but the one you hope you're becoming. The morning is still, too still, the kind of quiet that makes people speak in half voices and walk a little softer. The mist hasn't lifted, and the air has that strange weight to it, like the sky is waiting for something, but won't say what. Even Willett seems subdued. His usual stream of nonsense reduced to a low mumble about arrow balance and wind spirits. You check your bow without needing to. It's fine. You check again anyway. Tamsin brings out porridge that's thinner than usual. Supplies are running low. You can taste it in the food, feel it in the way she lingers a little longer when handing out bowls, like she's measuring each scoop in memory as well as weight. There'll be roots by week's end, she mutters. If no one eats him first. She glares at Willett. He nods solemnly. I would never rob a root of its destiny. Sir Osbert calls for readiness. Not drills, readiness. That's how you know something's coming. He doesn't elaborate, just walks the camp, checking weapons, counting arrows, asking the sort of questions that have no comforting answers. If we move before dawn, who can carry the water? If we're split, who takes the ridgeline? He's not bluffing. Not anymore. Thane gathers the archers that afternoon for what he calls final checks. No one asks what that means. You all know. He moves down the line, adjusting posture, checking bows, tapping shoulders like blessings. When he reaches you, he pauses, looks you over. You've stopped bracing your shot, he says. You hadn't noticed. He smiles faintly. Good. That means you trust it now. The sun doesn't so much set as disappear. One moment, it's there. The next, it's gone. The sky bleeds gray into black. You sit with Godric and Willett near the fire, each of you lost in thought. Willett sharpens an arrowhead that's already sharp. Godric hums a low tune. You hold your bow and listen to the sounds of the camp winding down. Tamsin hands out broth, herbs, garlic, and whatever else she could find. It tastes like someone tried. That alone makes it better than most. You thank her this time. She nods. That's all. Before sleep, you walk the edge of camp, just like Thane does. You stop near the tree line, stare out into the dark. You don't see anything, but you feel something. Not fear, not exactly. More like the weight of the next arrow before it's ever been loosed. You wake before the light again, but this time the camp is already stirring. Boots scuff softly against frost-hardened ground. Cloaks shift, breath curls in the air like smoke. No one says it out loud, but you all feel it. The edge of something, the closeness of a moment that hasn't arrived but already belongs to you. You dress slowly, fingers stiff. Every buckle and strap feels heavier today, as if your gear knows where it's going before you do. Willett hands you a fresh arrow. This one's called Hope, he says, with a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Or Harold. Honestly, I forgot. You tuck it into your quiver without asking which. There's something comforting about not knowing. Godric doesn't speak. He just sits by the fire, sharpening a knife that doesn't need sharpening. Tamsin gives him a piece of bread that's mostly crust. He takes it like it's gold. Thane stands near the supply cart, checking the packs himself. Osbert is nowhere to be seen yet. That's not a surprise. Leaders don't always rise as early as the weight they place on others. By mid-morning, the command comes. You move out, South Ridge. No battle yet. Just a watch. Just presence. But it's enough to thin the air. You march in silence through low brush, bows slung across your backs, arrows clinking gently like quiet warnings. Willett tries a joke halfway there, something about squirrels forming a union. No one laughs, but no one asks him to stop either. The ridge is steep, and the wind harsher at the top. You take position behind a line of brambles, half hidden, half exposed. Thane moves among you like smoke, correcting foot placement, adjusting angles, whispering to the wind more than the people. You crouch low, eyes scanning the tree line. There's nothing yet, just leaves. But you stay ready. That's what archers do. You're not the first strike. You're the quiet breath before one. Hours pass. You stretch, you wait. You shift your weight to ease the ache in your knees. You eat a crust of bread. You count your arrows. Again, each one has a different feel now. They're not just tools. They're possibilities, promises, maybe even prayers. As the sun begins to dip, Thane crouches beside you. If they come, he says, you don't think, you just breathe. You loose the first one like it's part of your body. The rest will follow. You nod, and you wait. The sky darkens slowly, like it's unsure how this evening should end. Clouds roll low, pulling the light with them. The ridge holds quiet, broken only by the occasional rustle of wind through dry leaves and the soft shift of bodies trying not to be seen. You sit in a crouch that your thighs hate and your instincts trust. One arrow rests loosely in your hand. You haven't drawn yet, but it's close. It's always close now. Godric stands a few feet away, unmoving, eyes fixed on the far tree line. He hasn't spoken in an hour. Willett sits beside you, chewing something leathery and pretending it's food. If this turns out to be nothing, he whispers. I'm naming my next arrow disappointment. You glance sideways. You already named one that. He nods solemnly. And it missed. Then moves along the line again. No orders, just presence. He passes you, rests a hand briefly on your shoulder, and moves on. That one touch does more than any speech. You don't even need to look at him to know what it means. Steady. Sir Osbert finally joins you near dusk. He looks tired, his armor scratched, his gloves worn, but he holds his bow right, and his jaw is set. No performance today. Just a man with something to protect. He crouches beside Aldred and speaks to him so softly, the wind steals half the words. You catch enough. You don't have to be brave, just useful. The trees ahead remain still. No sign, no motion. But your body's already halfway drawn. Your muscles coiled like rope soaked in cold water. You're not sure whether you want something to come or want it to stay quiet forever. Both feel dangerous. Both feel real. As darkness falls, you ease back slightly. Thane signals a slow shift. Rotate watch, 2 rest, 2 stay. You move down the line and settle behind a fallen log, wrapped in your cloak, eyes still sharp. Your hands never stray far from the string. Sleep isn't expected, just stillness. You lie back, stare at the stars that begin to peek through the clouds. And in that strange space between readiness and rest, you realize something that surprises you. You're not afraid anymore. You're ready. The night stretches on, longer than it should. Time begins to lose its shape. Minutes become vague, rubbery things. The stars shift overhead in slow procession, and the cold creeps into every seam of your cloak like it's been waiting all day for this moment. You're not shivering anymore. You passed that stage an hour ago. Now you're just cold, deep, steady, unshakable cold. You lie still, one eye on the trees, the other somewhere far away. You think about home, if you had one, a roof that didn't leak, a fire that didn't have to be begged into life, a bed that wasn't shared with mice, and the occasional confused chicken. You think about that innkeeper's daughter you met in Dunweather, the one who smelled like baked pears and had a laugh that cut through tavern noise like a clean blade. You think about the fact that you never told her your name. Willett stirs beside you. Not asleep, but not awake either. He's mumbling again, something about arrows that glow in the dark. You don't interrupt. Dreams are sacred out here, especially the harmless ones. Godric's on second watch. You hear him walking slow, quiet circles. A man shaped by routine. He never needed to talk much. His presence speaks louder than most people's words. You hear the occasional soft tap of his boot against root, then the faint drag of his fingers along bark, keeping himself tethered to the world. Aldred takes a shift too. Osbert finally trusts him enough to stand the line, bow in hand, back straight as he can manage. You don't envy him. First watches are always the worst. The bow feels heavier. The dark feels louder. You remember your first time. You missed everything you aimed at and tripped over your own quiver. No one laughed then. Everyone had once done the same. Thane hasn't moved. He's somewhere near the edge, eyes on the horizon. You suspect he doesn't sleep anymore. Not like the rest of you. Maybe he forgot how. Or maybe the part of him that knew how to rest was left behind, buried in some field he never talks about. And you still lying there, still holding your bow like a promise, realize something else. This silence you once feared, you've learned to live inside it. And maybe that's what it means to be an archer. Not just to shoot, but to wait, to see before others do, to know without question when it's time to rise. Dawn doesn't arrive with light. It arrives with ache. Your joints feel like someone replaced them with cold iron hinges. Your eyes burn. Your breath fogs before you. But you're awake. Not rested, just awake. the kind of awareness that lives in your bones, not your brain. You sit up slowly, cloak stiff with frost, and listen. Still no sound from the woods, but the silence has changed. It's tighter now, less passive, more listening back. Godric hands you a strip of dried meat. Doesn't say anything, doesn't need to. You chew it like it's a chore. Willett wakes with a sound like a broken kettle, and immediately starts muttering about dreams where arrows could talk, and one of them had a French accent. You pat him on the back. He sneezes. That one was named Bertrand. He mumbles, still half asleep. Osbert gathers the watch. His face is pale, his eyes shadowed, but his voice is steady. Movement in the woods, he says. Just a flicker. Could be nothing. He looks at Thane. Thane doesn't reply, but his hand rests on his bow in a way that answers more than words. We stay sharp, Osbert adds. No panicking, no noise. If they're watching, let them keep wondering. You return to the ridge. Everything feels closer now. The trees, the breath of the earth, even your heartbeat. You press your hand to the ground, out of instinct. Cold, still, but not empty. You check your arrows. Each one familiar. Willett's labels have begun to fade, worn down by handling, by weather, by time. He looks at you and says, "If I die today, tell Tamsin she still owes me a decent meal." You nod. "I'll carve it on your grave. Make it rhyme." He adds, "I want gravitas." Godric sharpens his dagger without looking down. His motions are slow, steady, almost meditative. You realize it's not about the blade anymore. It's a way of breathing, of staying present. Thane teaches without teaching. Godric listens without asking. Willett survives by talking. You just keep watching. The sun breaks through the trees in streaks. It hits your bow, catching the grain of the yew wood, the marks, the polish. You run your thumb across it. It's no longer just a weapon. It's a story, a ledger, a witness. And today, it might need to speak again. There's a stillness now that doesn't feel natural. It's not calm. It's not peace. It's pause. The kind that comes just before a storm breaks or a branch snaps under a foot that shouldn't be there. You feel it in your chest first, like your breath doesn't want to leave your body. Then in your shoulders, which pull tight without instruction. And finally in your fingers, twitching near the quiver before your brain has even caught up. Willett stops mid-sentence. That alone is alarming. He narrows his eyes toward the tray line. "Anyone else feel that?" he whispers. Godric nods once, never breaking gaze. Thane doesn't say a word, but he's already moving. One slow step forward, knees bent, hand hovering above his bow, like it might jump into action on its own. You follow his line of sight. Nothing moves, but something's there. You don't know how. You just know. The trees aren't swaying. The birds have gone. Even the wind has taken cover. It's like the whole forest is holding its breath. Osbert signals for silence. You were already there. He steps up beside Thane, eyes scanning, jaw tight. "How many?" he asks, quietly. Thane tilts his head. Hard to say, but not one. That's all he says. That's all anyone needs. You lower to one knee, arrow knocked, but not drawn. You listen, not for footsteps. That would be too easy. You listen for change, for broken rhythm, for the shift of weight that comes when a man thinks he's still alone, but isn't. A shape. Far left. Too fast for a deer, too upright. Another closer, then gone. Willett sees it too. "Oh no," he breathes. "Bertrand's not ready for this." Osbert draws his bow. You draw yours. All across the ridge, the motion is mirrored like breath in a single body. No signal this time, no barked order. Just instinct. just shared experience. An arrow cuts the air, vanishes into trees. A cry answers, sharp, human. Another shape bolts through the brush. More arrows follow. The ridge is alive now, not chaotic, not wild, just ready, just sharp. They charge the edge, but hesitate. They weren't expecting resistance, that much is clear. Bandits, likely, or mercs who thought bows meant weakness. They learned otherwise fast. You don't chase, you hold position. Archers don't run forward, you stay, you watch. You become the warning no one sees until it's too late. And in the lull that follows, with your chest rising fast and your bowstring trembling slightly, you realize they thought you were just villagers with sticks. They were wrong. The trees go still again. Whatever they were, scouts, raiders, reckless fools, they're gone now. Vanished back into the woodline like shadows slipping beneath a door. But no one lowers their bow. Not yet. Not even Thane, because every archer knows it's not the first charge that breaks you. It's the second, right after you think you're safe. Willett lets out a long breath. That went better than expected. He looks at you, eyes wide. I think Jeffrey took someone in the thigh. He's always had a dramatic streak. Godric snorts softly and wipes his blade on his cloak. You all know this might not be over, but for now it's a breath you can take. Thane steps forward, scanning the tray line again, his bow still half drawn. They were testing the line, he mutters, looking for the weak spot. He turns, eyes narrowing. They didn't find it. Osbert lowers his weapon, exhaling like he's just surfaced from underwater. No casualties? He asks. Aldred, pale but upright, nods. We're all here. Osbert nods once, and the tightness in his face eases for just a moment. You shift your stance, finally letting your knees unlock. The ground is softer than you remembered. Your boots sink slightly in the moss. You look down and realize your hands haven't stopped shaking. Not from fear, from tension. From how hard you gripped the bow. You flex your fingers, one at a time. The familiar sting of pulled skin and worn calluses greets you, like an old friend. Thane walks past, claps you once on the back. It's not a gesture of congratulations. It's acknowledgement. You held the line. That's all that matters. As the sun climbs higher, the mist burns off the ridge. Light spills through the trees, painting gold across the leaves and broken branches. It feels wrong, almost too beautiful for a morning that nearly turned bloody, but maybe that's the point. Even danger has to share the sky with grace. Tamsin appears with water and bread. No stew, no bitter tea, just quiet food, and the look she gives each of you. The kind that doesn't ask what happened, but makes it clear she knows. You take the bread, chew slowly. Every bite reminds you you're still here. Willett flops onto a patch of grass and stares at the sky. If I live through this, he says, I'm opening a bakery, one that sells nothing but bread shaped like arrows, for poetic reasons. You don't tell him that's a terrible idea. You just say, I'd buy one. Because sometimes, staying alive deserves a ridiculous dream. By mid-afternoon, the ridge is quiet again. No more movement, no more voices in the trees. Just the low rustle of wind brushing through the grass, and the sound of people breathing like they've only now remembered how. The watch is doubled, and no one complains. Everyone knows it's not over. It's just paused. And pauses are precious things when you live by the draw of a bow. You sit beneath a bent tree, your back pressed against the bark, your quiver beside you. The carved figure from Thane is in your hand again. You've started carrying it without thinking, not as a charm, not as a superstition, just something to hold, something real, something that doesn't expect anything from you but presence. Willet naps beside a log, hat over his face, arrows fanned out like a strange, warlike flower. Godric is checking bowstrings for wear, his expression unreadable. He does this after every fight, an old habit from a younger man who saw a bow snap mid-battle and never forgot the sound. Osbert paces near the tray line, not giving orders, not posturing, just walking, maybe thinking, maybe realizing that being in charge means being afraid for more than just yourself. Thane sits by the fire, sharpening a new arrowhead. His hands never stop, even when his mind is miles away. The sun hits the side of his face, tracing the lines that weren't there a year ago. You wonder how long he's carried this weight, how many camps, how many young faces that didn't get to grow old. Tamsin brings water in a dented tin cup and presses it into your hand without a word. Her fingers brush yours for a moment. Calloused, warm, brief, then she moves on. That's all you need. You drink, it tastes like cold stone and something cleaner than you expected. The light stretches out, golden now. Long shadows trail across the ridge. You string your bow again, just to feel the pull. It bites into your fingers, and you welcome it. It tells you you're still capable, still ready. You lean your head back and look at the sky. One cloud looks like a horse, another like a fist. You try not to assign meaning, but it's hard not to when you've lived long enough with symbols, when every arrow becomes a name, every scar a story, and every silence earned. Evening settles like a blanket, low and gentle, no alarms, no shouts, just the slow, grateful kind of quiet that seeps into the joints and smooths the sharp corners of the day. You've removed your boots, your toes finally breathe. The fire is low but steady, and for the first time in what feels like weeks, the smoke rises, straight, instead of clinging to everyone's cloaks like a judgment. You lean against a log and watch the flames. They don't dance, they breathe. Tamsin's made something that smells like lentils and thyme. Willett calls it victory stew. Thane calls it hot disappointment. You call it dinner and eat 2 bowls. It tastes better than anything has a right to out here. Maybe because you're eating it warm, with both hands still attached. Godric sits sharpening a broken arrow shaft. Not to fix it, just to do something. Osbert finally takes off his helmet and hands it to Aldred without a word. His hair is flattened on one side. He scratches at his jaw and says nothing. That silence earns him more respect than any speech ever has. Willett, revived by food and sleep, begins composing an epic ballad about the Battle of the Rustling Trees, starring his arrow Bertrand and an unnamed goose that may or may not have been involved. Thane hums in the background, eyes closed, somehow asleep and alert at the same time. You think he dreams in formation drills. Your bow rests beside you, unstrung, warm from the fire. You pick it up briefly, run your fingers along the grain. You know it now. Every curve, every notch, every slight shift in tension when the air is wet. It's not a weapon, not really. It's a ritual, a partner, a truth you hold in your hands when words don't work. The stars come out in clusters. You lie back on the ground, arms folded behind your head, watching them shift slowly above the treetops. It's quiet now, not the scary kind, the earned kind, the kind that wraps around your ribs and says, you did what had to be done. No glory, no parade, just survival, shared, steady, enough. And in that stillness, with the fire whispering and your limbs too tired to argue with gravity, you think, this might not be the life you wanted. But somehow, it's become the one you understand. The fire has burned down to coals, glowing like small stars on the ground. You're still lying on your back, eyes open, not asleep, but not fully awake either. Somewhere between, somewhere good. The kind of place where thoughts drift in and out like smoke and nothing demands to be solved. The kind of quiet you stop noticing until you lose it. Willet is snoring softly a few feet away, curled around his quiver like it's a childhood toy. Godric's blanket has slipped off his shoulder. You toss it back over him without waking him. Tamsin has long since retreated to her tent, though not before making sure everyone had something warm in their stomachs. You think she pretends not to care so no one sees how much she does. Your fingers find the carved figure again in your pocket. Still smooth, still solid. You roll it between your thumb and forefinger. It reminds you of something you're not ready to put into words. Maybe someday. The night is cool, but not cruel. The stars are sharp. The kind of stars that remind you how small everything is, how short the arrow's flight really is, even when it feels endless. You wonder briefly how many people are looking at the same sky right now. How many of them are soldiers, archers, dreamers? How many of them have names for their arrows and bruises they don't talk about? You reach for your bow, not to use it, just to feel the weight. It's heavier at night, not physically, but it carries the day. It carries the memory of tension, of aim, of breath, held and let go. You hold it across your chest like a question that's already been answered. Thane sits up nearby. He hadn't been asleep, just quiet. He looks at the sky, then over at you. Still awake? You nod. He doesn't say anything else. Just pulls his cloak tighter and settles back again. That's the thing about Thane. He says more in silence than most people do with speeches. You close your eyes, but not to sleep. Just to listen better. To the fire, to the breath of the trees, to the small hum inside your ribs that says, I'm still here, still breathing, still aiming, even in the dark. Most of the camp is asleep now. The kind of deep, hard sleep that only comes after a day that used every part of you. Boughs rest beside beds. Boots sit in muddy rows near tent flaps. Arrows are bundled like bundles of wheat, laid carefully across packs and crates, waiting for morning like everyone else. The only light is the faint red pulse of the fire's last coals, like the heartbeat of the ground itself. You don't want to sleep. Not yet. Not because of fear, but because you know how rare a night like this is, when nothing hurts quite enough to pull you under, and nothing waits outside the trees with a blade in hand. Just stillness, the kind that makes you feel like you've stepped outside of time for a little while. You walk quietly through the edge of camp, your bow slung across your back, the figure from Thane still warm in your palm. You stop near the old cart by the ridge, the one with the wheel that squeaks when it's rolled too fast. From here you can see the tray line. Just shadows now. Familiar, tamed by light and routine. You listen, nothing, and yet everything. Godric shifts in his sleep, murmurs something, then goes quiet again. Willet snorts himself awake, looks around, mutters, "Oh, I'm still alive," and goes right back to snoring. You smile barely. A twitch at the corner of your mouth. It's more than enough. You remember your first day here. You couldn't even hold your bow steady. You thought the archers looked like something out of a storybook. Serious, silent, sharp. And now you're one of them. Not because you became strong, but because you stayed. Because you kept drawing the bow even when it hurt. Because you missed and came back again the next day. Because you listened, learned, watched, waited. And through it all, the bow didn't judge. It didn't forgive. It just asked, "Are you ready?" You stand there for a while longer. The cold brushes your face, not biting, just reminding you it's there. You breathe in slow, let it out slower. The figure in your palm feels steady. You tuck it away. And when you lie down again, pulling your cloak up to your chin, you don't even notice when you fall asleep. The sun creeps in slow, almost apologetically. Not bright, not warm, just enough to peel back the dark and let the shapes of the world return. You open your eyes without rush. There's no horn, no shouting, no immediate sense of threat, just birdsong and the quiet clatter of someone stirring the fire back to life. You stay still for a few minutes, eyes open, watching smoke curl upward through the tent flap like it's stretching. Willett is already up, of course. He's crouched beside the fire with 2 sticks and an expression of intense disappointment. They refuse to spark. He says solemnly, "I think they've unionized." Godric appears behind him and lights it in one strike. Willett gasps. Witchcraft. He's ignored. You rise slowly. Your back cracks. Your shoulders complain. Your thighs whisper rude things. But you're upright. You're moving. That counts for something. You splash cold water on your face from the barrel, blink at the world through dripping lashes, and suddenly the trees look a little sharper. The breeze carries the scent of pine and ash. It smells like a place you've spent too long in to ever fully leave behind. Tamsin hands you a cup of something hot. You don't ask what's in it. You just drink. It burns a little, heals more. She nods once when she sees your hand trembling, then says nothing. That's the closest she comes to comfort, and it lands better than most words ever could. Osbert checks the perimeter, murmuring with Aldred, who's got a new cut on his cheek, but a steadier grip on his bow. He's learning, not from books, from days like these. You remember when your hands looked like his, unscarred, uncertain, still soft around the edges. You sit with your bow across your lap. You unstring it, check the limbs, test the flex. Every notch and nick means something now. You run your fingers over the grain and remember the places it's been, the ridge, the drill line, the nights when it rested beside you like a second spine. It's not just wood and string anymore. It's a record, a history. Thane walks past, tosses you a new wax cloth. You dries fast. He says, "Don't let it forget who takes care of it." Then he keeps walking. You nod, quietly grateful. You think, for a long moment, that maybe this is what survival becomes after a while. Not escape, not ease, just the building of a life around the thing that almost broke you. And if that life happens to include Willett trying to teach squirrels archery, well, you've seen worse. The day passes without event, which almost feels suspicious. You train a little, not hard, just enough to keep your hands honest and your arms from stiffening. Thane has you shoot at a stump with 3 knots in it, calling them head, heart, and habit. You hit 2. He says nothing, just grunts once, which might be approval or indigestion. With Thane, it's hard to tell. Willett's in a rare, quiet mood. He's sitting cross-legged, with his arrows spread out like a deck of cards, rearranging them by vibe. You ask if that's tactical. He says, "Absolutely not." Then goes back to humming. Godric spends the morning fixing his boot again, muttering about heel seams and poor craftsmanship. You sit beside him and help thread the cord through the leather. It's strange how natural that feels now, like fixing what breaks is as much a part of being an archer as pulling a bowstring. Tamsin has made something with peas in it. You don't ask what else is in there. The texture is vague, but it fills you. That's enough. She pats your shoulder once when you bring the bowl back. Not too hard, just enough to say, "I saw you." The sun begins to dip. The camp readies for another quiet night. You help Willett set up extra kindling and stack fresh arrows near the edge of the ridge, just in case. No one's expecting anything, but no one trusts the silence either. You take comfort in the preparation, not because you want to fight, but because being unready is worse than being afraid. You find yourself alone for a while, walking the edge of the tree line with your bow across your back, and your eyes soft from the way the light hits the grass. You think about everything you've done to make it here. Every miss, every bruise, every breath you had to remind yourself to take. And you realize something. You haven't just learned to shoot, you've learned to see, to notice the things most people pass by. The way the air changes when something's wrong, the weight of a shadow that doesn't belong, the quiet in someone's voice before they say they're fine. You sit near a rock and close your eyes for a moment. You don't sleep, but you rest, because tonight there's nothing chasing you. And that, in itself, is a kind of victory. The stars come out slowly, like old friends who aren't quite sure if they're welcome. You lie back on the earth, cloak wrapped tight around your shoulders, your bow within arm's reach, even though nothing stirs beyond the ridge. It's just habit now, keeping it close, like you'd miss a part of yourself if it weren't there beside you, catching the same moonlight, breathing the same cool air. The fire crackles low. Godric pokes at it with a stick, not because it needs it, but because it keeps his hands busy. He says something under his breath about the shape of the flames. You don't catch the words, but you nod anyway. You understand. Willett has drifted off mid-story, chin tucked to his chest, one hand still resting on a half-named arrow he'll forget about by morning. Thane sharpens, always sharpening. You wonder if he's ever tried just letting a blade be dull for a day. Probably not. But you wouldn't ask. Tamsin sits on an overturned bucket, sipping from a dented tin. She's watching everyone without watching. Her gaze moves like a mother's might, sharp, unspoken, tired. You think she must have known 100 camps like this? 100 cold fires, 100 ragged men with good intentions and poor aim. Someone hums. It might be Aldred. He's taken to carving something too. A little hoarse, you think. Rough, wobbly-legged, but he keeps at it. A small act of defiance against everything that wants to turn people into ash. And order. You close your eyes, just for a moment, not to sleep, just to listen. There's the wind in the trees, the distant creak of the cart, the sighs of people pretending they're not scared anymore. And beneath all of that is quiet, not silence, but quiet, the kind that feels earned, the kind that holds you like a warm stone. You roll onto your side, cloak bundled under your head. You rest your hand on your bow, not for protection, not even for comfort, just because it's part of you now, like a scar that no longer stings. And just before sleep reaches you, soft and slow, you whisper to no one in particular. I think I might finally be good at this. No one answers, but the stars blink gently in return. The night fades quietly. No fanfare, no trumpet of birds. Just a gentle brightening of the sky, the slow retreat of stars, and the faintest touch of warmth on your cheek as the first light brushes the camp. You wake without being called, your body moving before your mind fully catches up. You sit up, slow, no rush. No reason to rush. Not today. Willett is already up, somehow, poking at the remains of the fire with a stick and humming to himself like a man who just remembered he has no idea how to start a fire properly. Godric hands him flint without speaking. He lights it on the third strike. Both men nod, as if they've just solved something ancient. You stretch. Your spine protests. Your shoulders click, but it's all part of the rhythm now. Thane passes by, and you catch a rare thing, a quiet smile, small, almost missed, but real. He glances at your bow, then at you, and simply says, "You've kept it straight." It's a compliment, a rare one. You hold onto it like warmth in your pocket. Tamsin is already brewing something hot and questionable in the battered pot. You don't ask. You never do. It smells like bark and defiance. You sip it anyway. It helps. She offers you a heel of bread, that's more crust than loaf, but it crunches like satisfaction. Osbert calls for nothing, no drill, no lecture. He walks the edge of camp with Aldred, pointing to tracks in the dirt, showing him how to read the land like a book written in soft ink. It's the kind of lesson that sticks, not because it's shouted, but because it's shared. You walk down to the ridge alone. Just for a minute. The trees beyond still hold shadows, but none of them move. You feel the earth firm beneath your boots, the wind against your cheek. You draw your bow once, not to fire, just to feel the pull, the curve, the stretch of memory along your arms. You remember what it felt like to be new to this, to hold the bow with uncertain hands, to dread the first shot, to wonder if you belonged here. And now? Now it feels like you've always known this rhythm. Breathe, knock, draw, release. Wait, not just a method, a mindset. You turn back toward camp, bow still in hand, and take one last look at the trees. You don't feel fear. You feel ready. The morning moves on, without hurry. Tasks unfold like well-worn habits, gear checked, arrows counted, boots aired by the fire, if the sun is out long enough to matter. It's the kind of day that feels ordinary, but it isn't. You feel it in your bones. Something has shifted, not in the world, in you. You sit beside the cart with Willett, sharing a piece of overly dry bread that cracks like flint between your teeth. Do you think anyone ever likes this life? He asks, chewing slowly. Like truly enjoys it? You think for a moment, then shake your head. No, you say, but I think some of us need it more than we admit. He nods as if that makes sense. That's probably worse, he mutters, but I see your point. Godric is polishing arrowheads, not because they need it, but because still hands feel wrong now. Tempson is humming again as she washes her pot in a stream you didn't even know ran nearby. She's humming the same song you heard weeks ago. It's grown on you. It sounds like something your memory forgot, but your bones remember. You look at your bow again, the same one you cursed in the first week, the one that bit your fingers, bruised your shoulder, cracked your pride. It's been with you through every failed shot, every hit, every breath held in a moment you couldn't afford to miss. You run your thumb along the grip, you feel the grooves where your fingers have worn down the grain. It's not a symbol. It's a truth that you endured, that you showed up, that you became something no one ever trains for. Steady. Osbert kneels beside a fallen tree, helping Aldred adjust the tension in his bowstring. He doesn't correct, he guides, and that somehow says more about growth than any battle. Thane walks past, carrying a bundle of fletched shafts. Camp's quieter, he says without stopping. Feels earned. You nod. You feel the same. Less like peace, more like rest. The difference is subtle, but it matters. You sit by the fire that night and say little, but inside, everything is loud. Not in volume, in clarity. You know now what it means to hold, to wait, to aim, not just with your eyes, but with your entire being. And when Willett asks, half serious, half yawning, would you do it again? You don't answer. You just draw your bow in the dark, hold it for a second, perfectly balanced, and smile. The night wraps the camp gently, like an old cloak pulled across weary shoulders. No alarms, no movement in the woods. Just the pop and sigh of the fire and the rhythmic breath of people who finally let themselves fall into sleep without one eye open. You're not sleeping yet. You're sitting a little ways off, back against the same crooked tree you leaned on that first week, the one that seemed too uncomfortable to rest against. It doesn't feel that way anymore. You unstring your bow carefully. The string slips free, like a sigh. You wipe it down, wrap it in waxed cloth, and tuck it away in the small pouch Thane gave you. Good strings save bad days, he once said, but only if you treat them right. The way he says things, like they apply to more than just archery. You've started to notice that Willett is already snoring, a feather sticking out of his hair, like he fought and lost to a chicken. Godric's rolled himself so tightly in his cloak, you can barely tell he's human. Haldred talks in his sleep, quiet murmurs about flour and horses. You're not sure what the connection is, but you hope it's a better dream than most. Tamsin walks past you once, on her way to check the embers. She pauses, glances at your bow. Still keeping it close? You nod. Smart, she says, then adds, but you don't have to keep holding it like it's gonna leave. She walks off before you can reply. You look down at your hands, fingertips thick with callus, wrists stiff, knuckles slightly swollen. They don't look heroic, but they've done enough. Maybe that's what matters most in this kind of life. Not that you're the fastest, not that you never missed, but that you kept showing up. The night deepens. Fewer stars now, just a smear of light against black sky. You lie down slowly, bow beside you, and pull your cloak tight around your shoulders. You listen to the small sounds of camp, the ones you've come to trust. A cough, a shifting boot, the hiss of cooling ash. And for the first time in a long while, you don't feel like someone pretending to belong. You just... Morning comes soft. No fanfare. No trumpet of urgency. Just a slow light that creeps in through the trees and nudges at the corners of sleep. You open your eyes to the familiar, the smell of ash and wet wool, the creak of a bow being lifted, the low murmur of someone starting the fire. You stretch beneath your cloak, muscles stiff but willing. It's a good kind of ache, the kind that says you've done something, been something. Willett is already up, poking the fire like it insulted his mother. I dreamed I was a tree, he says, but I was also a bird, and I shot myself. Freudian, probably, you grunt. He takes that as agreement. Godric is sharpening his knife with the calm of a man who knows exactly how many things in this world he can't control, and chooses to sharpen steel instead. You find your bow exactly where you left it. You run your hand along it, like greeting an old friend, not with ceremony, with familiarity. It doesn't surprise you anymore, doesn't bite. It fits into your grip like your own name. You sling it across your back without thinking. The weight is nothing now. Or maybe you just got stronger. Osbert walks the line with a new kind of silence. Not fear, not pride, just presence. He nods to each of you. No speech, no performance. You think he finally understands what kind of respect is worth more than authority. Thane stands near the cart, arms folded, gaze on the horizon. Clear day, he says to no one. Too clear. Then he chuckles softly, as if amused by his own suspicion. He catches your eye and gives the smallest nod. You return it. That's enough. Tamsin serves hot broth with actual herbs in it. She doesn't say where they came from. She just hands you your bowl and says, eat. You do. You don't ask for more, but she gives it to you anyway. Later, you sit by the tree again, the one that saw you at your worst, the one that leaned into your back when you couldn't carry your own weight. You hold the carved figure in your hand, not tightly, just enough to feel it. You think of the first time you picked up a bow and how wrong it felt. And now it feels like the only thing that's ever made sense. You don't feel heroic. You don't feel famous. You just feel real. And in a life like this, that's more than enough. There's no grand ending, no banners, no sudden change in the wind. Just another breath, another step, another morning, where you tighten the strap on your bracer and feel the sting in your shoulder and know you can still do it all again, if asked. But today, No one asks. The camp moves slowly, as if even the fire has learned to stretch before it speaks. Willet hums something tuneless while sorting arrows. Godric has finally stopped sharpening things. Thane sits still, fully still, a rare thing. His eyes are half closed, his hands resting on his knees like the weight they once carried has eased. Just a little, you walk the edge of the tree line, your bow resting easy on your back. Not because you're patrolling, not because you're watching for danger, but because you want to walk, to see the light through the leaves, to hear the wind and know it's not hiding anything today. Just a breeze. Just peace. You sit at the ridge, the same place where you once thought you wouldn't last, where your arms burned, your aim trembled, and the fear lived right behind your eyes. You sit there now like it belongs to you, because it does. Not in title, not in ownership, but in memory, in presence. You draw one arrow, just one. Place it on the string. Pull slow. Not to fire, just to feel. Just to remember that you can. Then you let it down, gently. Behind you, someone laughs. Maybe Willet, maybe Aldred. It's light. It floats. You smile. The real kind. Tonight, you'll eat. You'll sit near the fire. You'll run your thumb along the bough. One more time. Maybe you'll dream. Or maybe finally, you'll just sleep. And if you do, let the quiet hold you. You've earned that now. Because you didn't become a hero. You became something better. You became real.